for RIKEN in the International Affairs Division, and I'm one of the people working on public relations in English. And we're having an event today. We're very happy to have people here. So we are going to be talking. We're going to have a science lecture, and I'd like just to ask you a couple of things before we start. First is that please put your microphone to mute while the speaker is speaking, and then after he finishes speaking, we can have questions. And if you'd like to ask a question, I'd like you to raise your hand using the function in Zoom to raise your hand. So then we'll be able to see you, and I'll call on you. And if possible, it's great if you can use, I see most people are using their names. So when I call in people, it makes it much easier if I can see your name. And then in addition, please feel free to share your screen if you're comfortable with it. If you have a nice background and you can let us see your face, it's very nice. Because then the speaker can see your face. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. And in addition, after the questions are over, we'd like to take a screenshot. So at that time, I'll ask everyone who's comfortable to turn their screen on and to smile for the camera. Okay, so now we're going to start. And the speaker today is Junichi Aikawa. He works for RIKEN Innovation, which is a company that RIKEN set up to make sure that the research that we do goes back to society. And he's a coordinator there. He graduated, he got his PhD from Tokyo University in agriculture. And he's going to talk today about a protein crisis, so a crisis that we're facing. So please go ahead, Dr. Aikawa.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. I'm Junichi Aikawa. Today, I'll talk about facing a protein crisis. A protein crisis itself is I think unfamiliar to most of you. And I introduced this phenomenon briefly. So these are my private opinion of the presenter. So these are not public opinions from RIKEN. So my face is like this, and you can see my face also in Zoom screen. And as introduced, I'm working in a RIKEN innovation company, and also in RIKEN. Also lecturing animal metabolism as a part-time lecturer in the private university. So today, I'd like to talk about the proteins and their shortage in the future. Why I'd like to talk? Because we need proteins. Why we need proteins? Because it needs to build muscles. Muscles are composed of essential and non-essential amino acids. And essential amino acids could not be synthesized in human bodies. So we need to take it. Usually we take those amino acids like meat and fish and some beans. This is today's menu. First, I'd like to talk about quantity of proteins. There are two problems: world population and meat demand. Second, from the view of quality of proteins, there are environmental issues. In addition, I'd like to talk about a solution. Let's move to world population. As you know, world population is increasing. United Nations model 2019 indicated in 2050 about 9.8 billion people will exist. This is a 25% increase from 7.8 billion people in 2020. Another model published in 2020 also shows similar results, so trends in population increase are common. Let's move to meat demand. There is a correlation between life level and dietary preferences. That is shift from carbohydrates to proteins and lipids. Thinking about the preferences in Japan, in 1960, here, GDP ranks at fifth in the world, and the Japanese lifestyle shows a lot of calories came from carbohydrates like rice. After Japan earns more GDP and the Japanese lifestyle changed, a lot of calories came from proteins and lipids. Similar changes will be expected in developing countries in Asia and Africa, where people will earn more money. From previous slides, this world population and meat demand. There are more people and more protein demands in 2050 and the future. Then there are questions. We can eat the same food as protein sources, and also we can prepare enough proteins to supply people who demand them. To increase current protein sources, there is a conflict to environment. So, from the view of quality of proteins, let's talk about protein issues. As impact of food sector on environmental issue, at least three factors will be discussed. Greenhouse gas, 20% green gas from food. Land use, 50% land use from agriculture. Freshwater use, 70% from agriculture. And we will see this greenhouse gas more clearly. And 26% from food, and in this section, there are four categories: supply chain, livestock and fisheries, crop production, and land use. 80% from supply chain, including transportation and food factory. 31% from livestock and fisheries. For example, cows produce methane gas. 20% from crop production. Animals need corns and soybeans as feed. Land use, 24%, of which 60% was used for pasture lands. So there are some issues, there are some problems about environmental issues. So there are any solutions to supply enough proteins to be demanded? There are a couple of solutions, and I'd like to present one here. That is insects. to eat insects is one of the solutions to solve these issues. In 2013, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations released a report called Edible Insects. The report cited useful data, and I'd like to present some data later. In parallel with eating insects in Asia and Africa, in Japan, there are some food examples here, especially Nagano and Gifu area. Like, I'll briefly introduce some tastes of them. And also about European companies. European countries are developing insect foods for human consumption very recently. And this is a shelf of the store like this. You can see some product of insects for human eating. So let's introduce tastes of them. Some are delicious, I think, and I tried. Some are so-so, some are similar. So Japanese dishes, like including like this or this, are cooked with soy sauce. So maybe you experience the soy sauce taste, not raw materials. And now younger people in Japan learned usefulness of these insects. This is a National Center University exam 2018, and there is a question about what is important sentences from these all of sentences. And the key sentence is this: insects are extremely healthy food as they are full of protein. So I think now 1 million young students learned these questions and to study this usefulness of insects. So let's move back to edible insects report of United Nations. Classically, many countries are eating insects as protein sources. As I mentioned, Asian and African countries are long histories to eat insects. In addition, Middle and Southern American countries do. On the other hand, European countries did not have such a history. So a merit to eat insects is less production of greenhouse effect gases. For example, of carbon dioxide, to produce same body mass cricket produced only 0.56% when compared with beef cattle here and here. In the case of ammonia, there is no data about beef, but you can compare between cricket and pigs, and very large decrease like this one. This is calculated as 12%. Other merit to insect is less demand for feed to produce edible parts of animals. Quality and quantity of feed are different among animals, and animal bodies contain inedible parts like bones. To gain 1 kilogram edible parts, crickets needs only 70% feed of beef. You can compare here and here. And from activities of wild chimps currently, we can imagine those of human beings in prehistory. Origins of proteins that wild chimp absorb: one-third from fruits, one-third from leaves and stalks, and the other from insects. In Africa, here, young chimps can learn survival skills like fishing for termites from adults using stalks. So let's talk to termites. Termites are situated at bottom of food pyramids and feed many animals like this one. Usually, 20% energy is conserved in animal bodies in next steps. Using next strategy, only 2.56% energy was used for our food. And most of energy will be converted heat in the atmosphere. On the other hand, when we can take termites directly, less heat would be produced. Termites had studied in RIKEN more than 20 years. Termites uses biomass as energy source here and nitrogen gas for nitrogen source to synthesize ammonia and amino acids. So termites supports material circulation on the earth and maintain biodiversity. There are several termites in Japan. If you are in the Honshu area of Japan, you can see like these termites. Its length is 5 to 7 millimeter. But you can see more bigger termites in Yakushima Island and Okinawa area. Its length is nearly 15 millimeter. So one of termites' characteristic is inseparable symbiosis system in their body here. So just show as a cartoon. There are nitrogen fixing bacteria here supported by a protists here. This system is hardly work under the air when you move them from their bodies on the bench. So utilizing termite body itself is convenient way to produce ammonia, amino acids, and proteins. So amino acid composition of termites is similar to beef and soybeans. This is composition of branched chain amino acids, so-called BCAA, including valine, leucine, and isoleucine. You can see a similar composition of them, indicating termite protein is useful to build and maintain human muscles. To summarize termite utilities, I'd like to mention termites are different from other animals. Again, termites use woods as carbon source and energy. They are inedible for humans and use nitrogen um, as a nitrogen source to synthesize ammonia and amino acids, and this is free. Other animals, on the other hand, eat grains like corns, so they are edible and costs a lot. So now we could produce a small amount of termite powder, but still we have two problems to produce some products. One is scientific issue. Produce a large quantity of powder as raw materials is still ongoing. And the second is business issue. Product like protein bar should be developed for human to buy and eat. And there are still some physical hurdles. So those are facing a protein crisis. I introduced world population and meat demand, and there is still environmental issues. There are many solutions we can imagine, and I just present one solution using termite. Our teams welcome your comments. Finally, I'd like to thanks to people who organized this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aikawa, for that very interesting talk. And I'd like now to ask people from the audience if they'd like to ask any questions. もし質問があれば、英語でも日本語でも、大丈夫ですので、手を、リアクションのところを使って、なんていうの、raise してください。So if anyone would like to ask a question, please use the reaction button to raise your hand, and I'll call on you. Well, maybe while we're waiting for other people to think of questions, I just have a quick question for Dr. Aikawa, which is, you showed us the termite product that would be edible, and you said that you had some. I just wanted to ask, how does it taste? Does it taste pretty good, or does it taste like insects?
Yeah, that's the difficult answer, but taste is not, I think no taste, and some taste from maybe wood, because termite eats wood as their feed, so still remain some flavor of wood. And termite itself is I think no taste, yeah.
Okay.
Not bitter, but not sweet. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Okay. If anybody would like to ask a question, please just raise your hand and we'll call on you. So, I mean, I think it is a quite important thing where we see that there is like a lot of problems with the world consumption of food. And so I think if we can get people to be willing to eat insects protein, it would be a good solution. I also wonder, people have a reaction to insects. Some people think that insects are kind of yucky and would avoid it because of that. Do you have ideas about how we can make people more willing to eat insects?
Yeah. Some people doesn't, no, some, not some, many people doesn't like shape of insects itself. So, and a reaction to insects, many people just kill them. Yeah, like especially in the urban areas. So,
Right.
so the to make powder is to help to lower the hurdle for to eat them. So no shape of insects was appeared. So that is one solution, but it takes energy
Mm,
and costs.
I see.
So I hope many people learn learn shapes of insects and accept themselves as they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. 他に何か質問があったらは遠慮なしでどうぞ来てください。Okay, so if people don't have questions, then I think what we'd like to do is maybe take a screenshot of it. So maybe Aiko-san, if you could stop sharing, yeah, if you could stop sharing your slides, and then anybody who feels comfortable with showing your screen, maybe just put your screen on and smile. I guess, Sasabe-san, can you let me know when you're ready? Sasabe-san?
Just a second.
Okay,
Sorry.
sure. No problem.